Talking Trees with Lily and Jad. Welcome to Talking Trees, your weekly journey into the intersection of nature and society. In today's episode, we explore a 2024 academic study that delves into the attitudes of the Spanish population toward protecting endangered flora. The authors investigate whether a conservationist or utilitarian approach prevails by examining public willingness to safeguard biodiversity. Using comprehensive survey data, the study assesses opinions on measures ranging from restrictions on property rights to the impacts of industrial development. The findings reveal a strong societal commitment to nature conservation in Spain, while also highlighting gaps in communication between environmental organizations and the public. Join us as we unpack these insights and explore what they mean for the future of biodiversity protection.
Hey there, all you tree whisperers out there. Welcome back for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Today we're digging into something that's super relevant to every arborist out there.
I wonder what that could be.
Public perception.
Ah, yes.
How do people view biodiversity conservation? And what does that mean for how we talk about the work we do?
I think that's a great topic to dig into.
So our main source for today is this fascinating 2024 study from Spain.
Okay.
They used a large-scale survey to kind of get inside people's heads
Interesting.
about, protecting those threatened plants.
Yeah?
And there are some real gems in this data, folks, especially when it comes to working with clients and whole communities.
Because you're right, public perception can really make or break those conservation efforts.
Totally. So first things first, the good news is people seem to genuinely love nature.
That's not surprising.
I know, right? But in this study, almost everyone picked nature as their top vacation priority.
Well, that's great to hear nature's good for the mind and body.
Exactly. And that's where we come in as arborists. I mean, we're literally out there making those natural spaces beautiful and accessible.
Very true.
But here's the catch. That love for nature is kind of broad.
I see.
It doesn't always mean they really understand specific conservation efforts.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Particularly when we're talking about plants.
Right.
The study found that people loved the idea of mountains and forests.
Sure.
But when it came to specific threatened plants, especially those lesser-known ones, their knowledge was pretty low.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? There's a gap between appreciating nature generally and understanding the needs of specific trees or plants.
Totally. So as arborists, it feels like we've got to bridge that gap.
We do. We need to connect that general love of nature with why it's important to protect specific trees and plant communities.
Now, here's where things get a little more complicated.
Okay, I'm listening.
The study also dives into this whole moral obligation versus property rights thing.
Uh-oh.
And it turns out there's a lot of support for protecting endangered plants.
Okay.
Even on private land.
Okay, good.
But then it gets tricky when you bring in government limits on development, even if it's to protect those plants.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so on one hand, a big chunk of people said landowners have a moral responsibility not to harm endangered plants on their property.
Makes sense.
But when you ask about government regulations restricting development to protect those same plants, the support drops quite a bit.
It's like they support the idea in theory,
Yeah.
but maybe not if it means having less freedom to do what they want with their own land.
Exactly. And as an arborist, I can see how that can create some real tension when you're advising clients.
Oh, for sure. Especially if they're already worried about regulations.
Right. Like, how do you balance advocating for the trees with respecting those property rights?
It's a delicate dance, and knowing how the public feels about it can help us tailor our message better.
Find those common values.
Exactly, and build those relationships based on understanding.
Okay, so we've seen how those property rights conversations can get kind of tricky.
Yeah, definitely.
But buckle up, folks, because there's some really good news in this study.
Oh, good. I like good news.
Turns out there's overwhelming support for using our good old tax dollars to protect endangered plants and animals.
Really?
Almost 90% of the people they surveyed were totally on board with it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And it gets even better.
Even better.
The study actually found that over half of the people they talked to thought the current spending levels weren't enough.
No kidding.
Like, they specifically said that 18 euros per person per year
Oh, wow.
wasn't cutting it.
They wanted to see more.
They actually wanted to see a significant increase in funding.
That's amazing.
I know, right? So thoughts we could walk into a city council meeting with this data and say, hey, look, people are willing to pay to protect trees and biodiversity.
It really gives you some solid ground to stand on.
It's like having ammunition for those budget discussions.
Absolutely. It shows that investing in nature is something people actually prioritize.
And they're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
It's not just talk.
So we've got public support for funding, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But then the study throws us a little curveball
Oh, what's that?
when it comes to who people think should be in charge of conservation efforts.
Okay.
Like which level of government they trust the most to handle it.
I'm curious.
Well, it was kind of all over the place.
Really?
Yeah, most people said the central government should take the lead.
Okay.
But a good chunk wanted more local control, and some even preferred oversight at like the EU level.
Wow, so it's really mixed.
It's super complex, and it shows that we as arborists need to be aware of all these different perspectives.
Definitely. It's not one size fits all.
Makes you wonder what's behind that split, though, right?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Like, is it a trust issue?
Maybe.
Do people distrust bigger government or feel like local communities know better what they need?
Could be. Or maybe they see the need for international collaboration.
Right, because these issues often cross borders.
Exactly. So it's about recognizing that complexity.
And being sensitive to those different viewpoints.
For sure. It's about building bridges and finding common ground.
Now, speaking of finding common ground, I thought it was fascinating how the study actually tested people's knowledge of different endangered plants.
Oh, yeah. How did they do that?
Well, as you might expect, the more well-known iconic trees, like the Spanish fir,
Ah, the Spanish fir.
had really high recognition.
It is a beautiful tree
Right. It's like the poster child for endangered species.
with that striking pyramidal shape.
I know. I was looking at the pictures in the study, and they're just stunning.
It makes you realize what's at stake.
Totally. But here's the thing. The smaller, less visually striking plants
Uh-huh.
didn't do so well in the recognition test.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like people had a harder time connecting with them.
Like they're not as charismatic.
Exactly. And it makes you realize how important it is to highlight the value of all those unsung heroes of the plant world.
Absolutely. They might not be as glamorous,
Right.
but they're just as vital to biodiversity.
You know, it's like they provide food and habitat for insects and stabilize the soil.
It's all connected.
And the study even threw in this really interesting curveball
Oh, what was that?
with a plant called Sierra Nevada chamomile.
Sierra Nevada chamomile. Never heard of it.
It's this tiny little wildflower found only in very specific parts of Spain.
Mm.
And they used it to kind of gauge public attitudes
Okay.
towards protecting plants found on private land.
So tying back into that whole moral obligation thing.
Exactly. Like they asked people, imagine you find this rare chamomile growing on your property. Would you leave it be, even if you had the legal right to remove it?
And what did they say?
Well, the vast majority of people said the plant should be protected,
Wow.
even if it was on their own land.
So it seems like people do have a sense of moral responsibility.
They do, even when it comes to endangered species on private property.
That's really encouraging.
It is, but it still brings us back to that question of how we balance individual rights with the need to protect biodiversity.
Yeah, because as we saw earlier, that support for conservation can waver when personal freedoms feel threatened.
It's a tough one, but it's a conversation we need to keep having.
Absolutely. And maybe it's about finding those created solutions.
Like what?
Well, maybe we explore incentives for landowners to protect endangered species.
Oh, interesting.
Or we focus on collaborative conservation efforts that involve the community.
Yeah, that makes sense. Empowering people to be part of the solution.
Exactly, because it's not about us versus them.
Right. It's about finding those win-win situations that benefit both people and the environment.
And that's where the expertise and communication skills of arborists are so crucial.
I agree.
We're the one who can bridge that gap between the science and the public.
We can help people understand the importance of trees
And find ways to integrate conservation into their lives.
without it feeling like a burden or a restriction.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance.
Oh, before we move on, there was one more thing from the study that really stuck with me.
Okay, tell me.
It has to do with social media.
Social media.
Apparently, they asked people which platforms they found most effective for getting news about environmental issues.
Oh, wow.
And the winner was,
Let me guess, Facebook.
nope, Instagram,
Okay, really?
followed closely by Twitter.
Interesting.
Or X as it's called now, I guess.
Right.
But it kind of makes sense when you think about it.
How so?
Well, both platforms are super visual,
True.
perfect for showcasing the beauty of trees and nature.
Yeah, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Right. And they're also great for sharing those bite-sized pieces of information.
And engaging with people in a more casual way.
It's less formal.
So it's a good reminder for us as arborists.
Yeah.
If we want to reach a wider audience.
And raise awareness about trees.
We need to be where the people are.
Exactly. So it's time to step up our social media game, folks. So let's recap what we've learned from that Spanish study so far.
Okay.
Remember, people generally love nature. They even support using their taxes to fund conservation.
Yeah,
But things get a little tricky when we talk about property rights.
right.
Or when we're trying to explain the ecological value of those less glamorous plants.
Those unsung heroes.
Exactly. And we also saw that disconnect right between how aware people are of conservation efforts
Uh-huh.
and the actual work that's happening on the ground,
A big gap.
which just highlights the need for us as arborists to step up our communication game.
Become better storytellers.
It's about making the invisible visible, right?
Exactly.
Showing people those intricate ways that trees contribute to the health of our environment.
And our communities, too.
So how do we do that?
Well, one powerful way is through storytelling.
Storytelling.
Instead of just presenting those dry facts and figures, we can weave those facts into narratives that people connect with.
Stories that resonate with their hearts.
Exactly.
Can you give me an example?
Let's take the Quercus vaginea, for instance.
The Quercus vaginea.
Yeah, it's a type of oak native to the Mediterranean region.
Okay.
So instead of just saying we need to protect this tree because it provides habitat for endangered birds, which is true,
Yeah.
we could try something like this. Imagine yourself walking through a sun-dappled forest. The air is filled with the sounds of birdsong and the rustling leaves of the Quercus vaginea, a tree so vital to this ecosystem that it's often called the mother of the forest.
Wow.
This majestic oak provides shelter and food for countless creatures, including some of our most beloved birds. But sadly, the Quercus vaginea is facing a growing number of threats, from habitat loss to climate change, and it needs our help to survive.
That's beautiful. You took a scientific fact and you made it a story.
A story that evokes emotion.
A sense of wonder.
And that's the power of storytelling, right? It helps people connect with trees on a deeper level.
See them as living beings with their own stories to tell.
Exactly.
And speaking of connecting with people, remember that point from the study about tailoring our message to our audience?
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you're talking to homeowners, you might focus on the benefits of trees for property values.
Right. Or how trees can help lower their energy bills.
But if you're talking to a group of nature enthusiasts, you might highlight the role of trees in fighting climate change.
Exactly. Or their importance for biodiversity.
It's about knowing your audience and speaking their language.
And understanding what matters to them.
And being authentic.
Yes.
So on that note,
Yeah.
we're going to wrap up this deep dive into public perception and biodiversity.
It's been a great conversation.
We hope you found it insightful.
And that you feel empowered to be a champion for trees.
In your own community.
Because every conversation, every interaction is an opportunity to plant that seed of awareness
And appreciation.
for this incredible world of trees.
So until next time, keep learning, keep exploring.
And keep those trees thriving.
We'll see you out there in the urban forest, folks.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Talking Trees. We've delved into a thought-provoking study that explores Spanish attitudes towards protecting endangered flora, uncovering a deep commitment to conservation alongside challenges in communicating these values effectively. May these insights encourage us all to engage more actively in preserving our natural heritage. Until next time, keep nurturing the green around you.